Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Superman and Lois, Season 2, Episode 7. Really, there is to, I think, be a Daughtry song, because I think there's this song that goes, we'll find that there are no surprises, or we'll find in time that there's no surprise. And really, that's what this show kind of just gets into. It feels like they're going on and like writing themselves into a corner, so much so where we're just like, well, it's obvious that this show is now going to go this direction. And it's kind of funny, like through every possible episode that I've reviewed so far, there is always some kind of something that they eventually use later down the road. Just I'm just like, man, how is it that like I wish I could go on and just and have a bigger channel and be able to be a better YouTuber. But here's where we are, sadly enough. To just know ahead of time that this show is going to be written in a certain direction, and then it comes true. So, with this episode, we kind of have it be heavily on the soap, but we do get some action in this episode. Some creative action that I think we have kind of been needing for this show. And like creative action in just a small window of scene, because we like finally have to go on and use a number of characters together in one fell swoop of a scene. And kind of what I was saying in other reviews, technically in a roundabout way, happened. All happened within episode. So I thought that was kind of just like, I'm like, man, just roll the dice on this bad boy, just freaking getting it all down. Just so with that said, the last that we are to leave our characters, Superman was to go on and be imprisoned. Imprisoned to, of course, be tortured to try and get information, because Anderson in this episode is to desperately want to know where Bizarro is, and he will do anything to get those answers at this point, even if it means that Anderson is going to cross a line that he should not cross. Because at this point, like, this guy is just in desperation mode to save his job, and we have Anderson that is so absurdly corrupted at this point that really he is just having this idea that is to make him seem like J. Jonah Jameson against Superman. Whereas before, it seemed like Anderson was kind of like, I'll work with this guy. Like, I think maybe, like, we can come to terms about being friends. Now it's all of a sudden we have him being like J. Jonah Jameson. It's like, man, that Spider-Man has got to be in cahoots with everybody. We kind of have him do that in this episode. So, kind of a very weird, odd turn. So, we have interesting things going on with Sarah, which I already technically knew about. Check out old reviews. And we have something interesting going on with Jonathan that I couldn't help. Maybe at some point I was possibly in the ballpark thinking of where Jonathan was going to head in this episode, but not quite exactly sure. But hey, we have these characters, and like things have to escalate somehow. So with that said, we like at least we don't really have much of anything going on with Lois and Lucy and Allie in this episode. Even though Allie is technically in this episode as well as Lois is in this episode, they're not connecting together. I'm like, thank freaking God. I'm like, at least Lois is to be tied with something else in this story. And I kind of like that a lot better. Like, we really need to go on and try to do something different with these characters, because it feels like we have a number of people that they've kind of been using the same story again and again and again, to where we can immediately know where stuff is going to head. And it's very much like, man, could we go on and just, could you give us a slice of something different? And plus, also, if I could go on and immediately know how this story is going to go at some point, I would love it. Considering we have a bunch of, like, Kryptonian kind of dust that goes into a lot of this episode, could we please have Metamorpho go up against Superman? I honestly think that Metamorpho would be the perfect guy to go up against Superman. Please let that be for season 3. Have it build up a whole story where it's Metamorpho against Superman. Like, create the character, and because really, when I'm thinking in this episode, I'm like, man, you could go on and easily have Metamorpho go up against Superman, and it would make all the sense in the world to have these two fight out. I swear to God, if they use Metamorpho in the next season, I'd be like, somebody's watching my videos. Because nobody really knows about Metamorpho, but it would actually be the perfect character to go up against Superman. It would make a lot of sense. So definitely go and Google Metamorpho. He's a really cool character, and it would make all the sense in the world to have this guy go up against Superman. And plus, also, I think they reasonably can do Metamorpho where it doesn't take so much special effects, budget, whatever. Make him an actual person, and then just kind of have these goofy effects at some point, kind of at a very smaller rung of budget, but they could do it. So, we also still have to deal with the pain of the Cushing family. We don't actually see Kyle until the very end of this episode. So Kyle in this episode isn't going and trying to win Lana back. It just kind of feels like both of these characters are having space. If anything, we just have Kyle, who's consistently calling Sarah in this episode, and she kind of now has to figure out a way to deal with that, or understand that, or like figure out what she should try to do, hoping that she may not be betraying either parent. So let's just go on to spoilers. I've already talked for far enough, but Metamorpho or broke next season. How is it that Metamorpho is not the perfect villain for Superman? But wait, he's not an evil Superman. So, but isn't it funny how we go on and we have Bizarro, but then, like, he doesn't really become a prominent character, and all of a sudden he just kind of changes into being a hero character. And I'm like, 2 seasons of evil Superman where they go and they ruin them. We have an evil Superman from another world, and they did nothing with that. Bizarro, they now just make him a hero, and now it's just, man, I'm so... They need to have a villain that is not a evil Superman from somewhere. And I, like, unless it's like Cyborg Superman or some goofy thing, which I think they've probably used maybe possibly at some point, so maybe rule that out. Because Supergirl? I don't know. Anyways, I've taken too much time. Let's go into spoilers. I'm sorry. Spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time I get to spoil this episode. So let's kind of in a roundabout way go about all of this thing. So Superman, of course, is to have been carted away, and so we find out that Superman is in the exact same cell that Tal-Rho is. So there isn't like a divider. There's like no, like they just shove both of them in the same cell. I'm like wouldn't Tal-Rho and Superman just immediately just as soon as Kal wakes up, or like while Tal-Rho is like looking on his brother sleeping, wouldn't he just put a pillow to this guy's face and be like, "You're gonna die"? No. They don't immediately like they kind of warm up to the whole fighting thing, which is kind of garbage. Because I would have thought immediately like Kal would have woken up because like Tal-Rho was like smothering him with a pillow. And I'm like, "You're gonna die, Kal. I'm gonna get my revenge, Kal." No. So when Superman wakes up, we immediately have Tal, who's like, "Well, hey, bud, hey, brother, hey, like it's nice to see you again," kind of thing. And so Tal-Rho and Superman are kind of like Tal-Rho is thinking that like, "Oh yeah, like we're the best of friends. Like didn't we work together before? Like hey, I helped you out before, right?" And Superman is like, "Well, yeah, but you also hurt my son." And Tal-Rho is like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did do that." So they're arguing, and so that argument just kind of leads to them just kind of being stuck in a cell together, just having to forcibly try to figure out like how the heck to get out of the cell. And so Anderson comes in and is to go on, and I'm gonna be all over the place with this one. I just want to get some stuff out. So it is what it is. Every single review is going to be this way. Anderson goes in and is to slap on this kryptonite collar to Tal-Rho because Anderson wants to know where Bizarro is. You know what? If Bizarro isn't wreaking havoc upon your town, and now you've also captured Superman, what do you still need what do you still need Bizarro for? He's not running amok. Like, do we just have it where Anderson is like, well, there's a possible threat that Bizarro could still be out there somewhere? I would just say, you know what? Like, if he hasn't been like tearing through the town in a week's time or a month's time or whatever, like I would just be like washing my hands away of it. Of like, okay, like it seems like Superman did figure out a way to sell this person, and I'll leave it at that. But Anderson is like, no, I need to find out the exact location of Bizarro because Superman seems to know exactly where this guy is. So Tal-Rho is getting kryptonite collared injured. And at one point, Tal-Rho is looking at his brother. He's like, "Brother, please, yeah, this collar, yeah, I'm getting hurt, Kal." Was he really getting hurt? Superman goes on and tells the location of the Fortress of Solitude that's in the Arctic. Superman's hangout. And so they go off, and we have Tal-Rho that is to say to Superman, it's like, well, hey, wait a minute. Like, you told them, because they're talking in Kryptonian language. Kryptonian language, which they're talking in Krypton. whatever. Anyways, so we have them exchanging back and forth. It's like, well, hey, you gave the location of your Fortress of Solitude, not my fortress. What's going to happen when they find out that Bizarro isn't there? And Superman's like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, kind of thing. And so Anderson is to go on and find out after they go and send this military force to this fortress. And they realize that Superman had lied. Oh no, how could he have betrayed? Now, while that's going on, we have both Superman and Tal-Rho who are kind of fighting it out. They're kind of wrestling maneuver fighting it out. Like, I'm going to choke you. Wrestle it out. All of a sudden, we have Anderson realizing that both of these guys are fighting it out in a cell because they have one room together. So these soldiers go in and they're like, hey man, we're going to shoot you. Better stop that fighting. All of a sudden, we of course have it where Tal-Rho and Superman get the jump on these guys. They go and get one of the weapons from these men, and Tal-Rho is to take out the power for them to speed out of here. So now that I've gotten all that covered, because that is kind of like a real interesting part of the story, and now we have to go and plop in all the other stuff. And then we'll get back to the fighting and the interesting stuff. We'll get to that. So, Lana. Laura? You mean like Cal's mother? Lana is still dealing with her breakup from Kyle. And Sarah's going on and getting all Kyle's stuff and putting in the garage because Kyle couldn't have been bothered to get his crap. Because you just tell that Kyle is really just taking this relationship really well. This whole breakup really well. This relationship breakup. And so Sarah and Lana are having these dialogue moments where Sarah is saying, like, she's kind of blaming Kyle, and like Lana is saying it's like, well, it's my fault too, like I'm kind of putting you guys in this situation, like these kind of like things of dialogue. So Sarah is to get her younger sister ready for school. Sarah goes to school and her father is consistently calling her. And Sarah is to ignore the phone calls. Jordan is to ask Sarah, it's like, hey, are you going to first period today, or are you not feeling up to it? Sarah's kind of unsure. She's just kind of working through some things. And so Jordan is trying to like talk to her and like kind of ask her how she feels about things. So later on in the episode, we have Audrey appear. In the back of my mind, I am thinking that Sarah can't go on and talk to Jordan about this and figure things out. That now Sarah has to go on to find a previous lover, technically, no matter how brief it was, and confide to her. And how is this going to go horribly at some point, where all of a sudden Audrey is probably going to keep coming back to Smallville to continue to comfort Sarah, and how is this just going to spiral out of control? Because why didn't Sarah just Skype Audrey? Why did this girl have to physically be in Smallville. This could have been a phone call. This could have been a Skyping thing. We've had in previous episodes that Jonathan had Skyped his girlfriend before. And then they broke up. So you never really saw this girl on this show. And COVID be danged, whatever, I don't care. Really, you've had a Skyping thing before. Why not do it now? Why does this person have to physically be here unless she's probably going to be on the show more at some point? May not be this season, but it may be the next season. I have a feeling, but I'm not quite sure. So we have Sarah that's asking Audrey about what she should do. Like, yeah, I kind of want to talk to my dad, but I also don't want to betray my mom. And if I can go on and confide to anybody about a relationship, or a relationship, I keep saying the word relationship. If I can go on and talk to anybody about a broken home, I can talk to Audrey. And Audrey's like, thanks. Thanks for just, like, that's how you introduced me onto this show. You, Sarah. So Audrey just simplifies it and tells Sarah, it's like, you know what? If you want to talk to your dad, go on and talk to your dad. Like, don't feel like you're choosing sides. Don't feel like, if anything, just talk to your dad and just talk it out. Just go ahead. So by the end of this episode, we, of course, have Sarah that takes Audrey's advice. And now she's going and she is talking to her dad. And I'm wondering if that's how they're going to kind of, like, continue. Maybe they're going to have her, like, Audrey come in and Skype later on and just be like, yeah, like, your advice really helped. And, like, nothing that Jordan can do can really help. It's bound to happen. It's, like, it might as well. Because I'm assuming that, like, we really don't have Jordan and Sarah. Like, we still don't have them, like, really that close. It just, like, doesn't feel like Jordan is really comforting Sarah through these episodes. It just kind of feels like he's just there, and there's nothing he's gonna say or do that could make Sarah happy, or to really just, like, Jordan can go on and help Sarah, like, move some of the stuff out. He can go on and be more involved. He could just be like, well, hey, like, your problems are my problems, and, like, let me help you. But no, Jordan is not that character, I guess. So now we have to deal with Jonathan. Jonathan is to, on the opening of this school day, he is to, of course, go and talk to Candace. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that this is going to play out in one of two ways. But it eventually ends up playing on the way that it goes. So all of a sudden we have it where Candace and Jordan are kind of talking like it's a normal drug dealing day. Where Candace is telling Jonathan, hey, here's a ton of XK for you to go on and, like, have a huge number of supply. How is Jonathan getting these massive amounts of XK without paying for them? Shouldn't there be some kind of payment that he's having to give her? Unless maybe there's some other kind of payment that he's giving her, you know what I mean? How does he have money to give this girl? Are we gonna see some credit card that he, like, maxed out on, or are we gonna see the repercussions of that? I don't know. So because you can like ATM or whatever, or credit card at some, I don't know. So Jonathan, in the back of his eye, is realizing that there is police officers coming in, there's dogs coming in, who can, I guess, specifically smell XK. And they're going through the school, they're trying to figure out, oh, who is the culprit, who is the guy, who is the person. Like, when they go on and when they, like, sniff for this, like, wouldn't they do this while everybody's in class? But I guess they couldn't exactly go on and wait that long, right? So Candace is realizing that, oh my god, the police are here and they're probably going for this XK. Oh no, I might be in big fat trouble. And Jonathan's like, no, give it to me and like I'll take this. I'll take the brunt of this. And if I were in Jonathan's shoes, I would just like, oh no, like you're on your own. I'm out of here. But really, when thinking about it, I'm sure if Candace was to have these drugs, she would immediately try to squeal on anybody who at any point was to take these drugs, these medication, and Jonathan would have been outed either way. So they would have found out. Because I'm sure Candace was squealed like the daylights, but Jonathan, who is to go on and have all this XK, is to not out Candace. No matter how many times Lois, or no matter how many times Clark has come in there, because Clark at the very tail end of this episode is to talk to Jonathan and just put the hammer down. And I'm just like, okay, it's just like, really, if like Jonathan can go on and finally do any number of things when his parents are kind of go on and being like really harsh on him, Jonathan can just go on and just be like, hey, you know what, like I can out you as Superman. See what happens then. Will Jonathan be like forced to just be stuck in the Fortress of Solitude forever? Hey, where's Jonathan? I don't know. He's having a timeout in the Arctic, or no, in the other fortress. But yeah, when looking at it, like we're having Jonathan go on and no one is really pressing charges against him having this kryptonite, but the school is wanting to expel him, and really there's just like, well, like this kid's career could be ruined. Like football is like he's never going to be able to do a sport ever again, obviously, because Jonathan has now, like, if he isn't taking X kryptonite, what else is he going to take? So football and any other sport is probably over for this guy. Because all he wanted to do was to start. So Jonathan comes home, and Lois is kind of tearing Jonathan a new one, maybe, barely. And once Jordan comes home, Jordan does mention that, well, yeah, I found out, and I basically talked him out of going on and taking another dose, because Jonathan was saying, like, yeah, like, after Jordan was to find out, like, I stopped taking it. And so the only thing that Lois really gave a about is that Jonathan could be dealing drugs. She didn't give a that he was taking it. She was just like, oh no, like, maybe he's dealing drugs. How could he? Do you think he could be a drug dealer? I'm like, what about him taking these drugs? Like, he could have laser beamed somebody's freaking, like, head off. He could have gone on and killed people. But all you give a about is that he's dealing these drugs? Making other people have superpowers? You should have been caring that your son could have killed somebody because some power could have gone haywire and Jonathan hasn't come accustomed to these powers like both Jordan or Clark have. Like Jordan, when he was starting to get his powers, they completely took Jordan out of school for safety precautions and safety reasons for him to adjust to these powers. And so really for like I'm kind of curious if Jonathan's powers are eventually going to kick in and all of a sudden they're like, oh no, he's taking X kryptonite again. Where is he getting it? How is he getting? And like, so now we'll always second guess if Jonathan is to ever get powers, and Roy's going to say that, oh, like he doesn't have powers. There's some leftover X kryptonite that he had, or like he's a druggie. Just kind of ruins his character, and then like Jonathan is to be all like in this episode. But I'm kind of wondering where they're going to take Jonathan. And wouldn't it be interesting if we just go on and have Jonathan just further and further just betray his family? Let's go into the very like darkest Jonathan story and then have him turn around and just like, you know, what I did was a mistake. Because like, if he took XK, when is it gonna go on and just like escalate further into like Jonathan spiraling out of control and just turn to the dark side? I don't know. It'll be interesting because Jonathan just like when he turns to his mother and says like, well, like I wanted to be great at something and everyone else in this family is great at something. And so I wanted to take XK so I could start for football because Timmy or whatever was taking it, and like I want to be in football and blah blah blah. And so that's the excuse that he goes and uses against his mother after Lois is to talk to Lana and just say like do you really think that my son could go on and be a drug dealer like Lana? Like, shouldn't Lois be asking her son about this? Like, why is Lois going out of her way to find some other person in this town to ask if her son could possibly be a drug dealer? Honestly, like, Lois can't go on and ask, like, Superman about this because he's prisoned and whatever. And so Lois has to go on and go to Lana about this and just try to figure things out. And so Lana goes on and she's like, well, my daughter at one point had almost taken her own life. So I sat down with her and I asked her, like, why did she go on and do it? And you know what? Like, after, like, I kind of heard what she had to say, like, I was like, okay, like, I can see where she's coming from kind of thing, or I can kind of, I can see why she would do such a horrific act like that. So Lois goes and talks to Jordan, and Jordan is just like, well, I want to be better. I desperately tried to just do something great. Sure. we also have it where Lana is to realize that the newspaper is throwing up all of these Governor Dean ads or Mayor Dean ads. And so Lana goes to Lois and is saying, like, man, why are you guys tossing up all these ads for Mayor Dean? And Lois is saying, it's like, well, hey, I would go on and throw up any number of ads for you, like, for absolutely free, but, like, that's technically against the law. Like, we can't do that. That's wrong. And so Lana's like, well, how much did he pay? She's like, $3,000. And she's like, $3,000? I don't have that kind of money. Like, no. Like, there's no way for me to go on and try to, like, put together those kinds of ads. Like, that's... And so Lana goes on and figures out here that she needs to kind of use what the Mayor Dean is doing and use it against him somehow. Where the mayor is going on and saying that, oh, I have family values. Every single one of these people are all my friends. Ha 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 ha. He's going on in this meeting and he's telling everybody how, like, a girl named Ada is to sound better than him in church. And this guy and him went fishing together and blah, blah, all these people. They're all my family. Everyone is my family here. And then Lana comes in and she's like, really? Is everyone in this town a family? It's like, well then, like, how is it, like, if I'm a part of your family, if I'm a family member of yours, why are you treating me the way you're treating me? Why are you being so brutal to one of your supposed family members? And using, like, this whole campaign of you having a family and everything working out so great for you, and using that against me? How could you? All of a sudden, everybody's who's kind of like for like the dean just kind of like, you know what, maybe, I don't know, maybe we should probably vote for Lana, you know what I'm saying? So now that I've technically covered all the little small stuff, if I didn't say, Sarah at the end of this episode does go and talk to Kyle, so that ends that part of it. So now we can go back to the superhero beatdown. Because there's a lot of just superhero stuff that goes on in this one. So we have Tal-Rho and we have Superman after they escape the red kryptonite, or the red cell, the red sun cell. Let me say that correctly. And they go on and they make it to Tal-Rho's fortress. And they're going on and they're talking to Bizarro. And Bizarro speaks in gibberish. And Tal-Rho is like, yeah, like, you got a guy that, like, is to be different than you and he can't even talk. But then they change it. And so Tal-Rho is now asking Bizarro, like, hey, like, are me and you, like, friends on your world? And Bizarro is saying no. And he's like, well, like, were we ever friends? And Bizarro's like, well, yeah, they were the best of brothers, until at some point Bizarro's wife was trying to kill, or Tal-Rho's wife was trying to kill Bizarro. And so that's where the lines were drawn in the sand, and all of a sudden they were against one another. And so Tal-Rho is kind of desperately going on, like, who's my wife? Who's my wife in your world? I want to know. Like, could she be on this earth? So all of a sudden we have a kryptonite rocket that makes its way into this fortress. And we find out Anderson, with his kryptonite weapons, is to go in here and try and take down Tal-Rho, Superman, and eventually Bizarro. Because Anderson is to go on and realize that Tal-Rho, Superman, and Bizarro are all working together. So Anderson has to go on and take all of these men in by any means possible. And that means that he's going to dose himself with XK to try and go on and go up against these men. And I'm like, yeah, like very much like Jonathan Kent move for like when Clark had red kryptonite. Jonathan's like, well, I need my son back, and then he goes on to get Superman's powers, and he starts taking them down. Kind of the same thing here, where we finally have like Anderson, who's going and like, well, I'm gonna go on and get my superpowers, even if it means like, what if we find out that all these characters who go on and take X kryptonite, eventually, if they're humans, like their body can't take it, and we start to have it at one point where like people start getting really ill or really sick, whoever took it, and they're close to death, and they have to figure out some kryptonite cure. That would be an interesting story to at least finally say that no one should ever take this this X kryptonite ever again, even though it seemed because we need to figure out a way to get rid of X kryptonite. Otherwise, everyone's gonna take it, and like we're gonna have at one point where freaking like Batman is gonna come into Superman and Lois, like, yeah, I'm gonna beat you down, Kal-El. Instead of going on and finding green kryptonite to even things up, I'm gonna just inhale some X kryptonite. So that's basically Superman's contingency plan in the show. For anybody who just can't beat Superman, just take X kryptonite and be as powerful as Superman. Like, so John Henry Irons no longer needs his ironed suit. He just needs to go on and take some X kryptonite. So he can just heal up. Maybe they can go on and also find, like, X kryptonite maybe has healing power or something like that to just, like, especially if John Henry Irons is kind of, like, he's in the hospital still. That's just me, though. Anyways, there has to be a reason why, like, Steel can fly in Justice League episodes. I don't know. Anyways, Superman is starting to, like, figure out how to try to combat Anderson that is super powered up. Tal-Rho all of a sudden is noticing that Anderson is gearing up to shoot kryptonite bullets into Superman, and Tal-Rho kind of like he like goes on and takes the bullets for his brother and then falls over and he's almost dead. And so now Laura is turning to Bizarro and saying like, you need to save my sons. And Bizarro's like, hey, okay, whatever that meant. Bizarro goes on and starts fighting Anderson, and I honestly think that this scene is really cool between Bizarro and souped up Anderson. It's kind of really interesting. So now, because we have to figure out a way to write out the fact that both Bizarro and Superman can't be at the same place at once. So they have to figure this out. And so Cal goes on and has to go and grab Tal-Rho to fly him to the sun. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're going to have all of a sudden like All-Star Superman where too close to the sun is going to have like Superman like die. Ugh. I shouldn't have spent so much time with that sun. Ugh. I'm going to die now. I want something to be really just... We need to get some crazy stories in the show, because I need something wildly different to amuse me, where everybody's almost at near death in this story. Because it's not like people are almost dead enough. So, Anderson is to fight Bizarro and realizes that kryptonite just won't do. Green kryptonite or blue kryptonite. I think blue kryptonite is to supposedly make Superman like normal human Superman. Hence why you have the blue color. So, because if you guys would go and had seen like Smallville season 8, we kind of introduced blue kryptonite a lot more between Zod and Clark. And so, yeah, so we get that. And I kind of wish they would use kind of all the other spectrums of kryptonite a lot more in this show, because they did invent X kryptonite, or they did at least put it on this show. That kind of makes it a little bit more unique. So Bizarro is finding Anderson, and Anderson's like, oh no, like this guy, like anything that I have is not going to be like well used. And so, but then we have, of course, Anderson that figures out, like, well, smash. And so he has all these inhalers, and he's smashing them against Superman. And then he's also going like, and then he's like, smash, like, smash. And so Anderson weakens Bizarro so much so that Anderson just kind of chokes Bizarro to the point of killing Bizarro, and now supposedly Bizarro is dead. I don't really buy that. I just don't. I'm naturally having in my thought process, like, think of Superman. Like, even when Superman is to have gotten killed by Doomsday at some point in some story, and he's put in this coffin, and you're assuming he's dead, Justice League, all of a sudden we just turn around and find out, like, well, hey, Superman came back to life. Yeah, because he can't be killed. And at some point he's going to have, like, this, the sun poking into his coffin somehow or another, and he's just going to come back to life somehow. Yeah, just weird stories and whatever. So, anyways, Bizarro is to assumed to be dead, which I doubt it. I don't think so. Tal-Rho is now hurt, and so, like, Superman is kind of looking at his two other people that have helped him recently. So, transition to having Tal-Rho back in his prison cell, and Superman saying what was fated for Bizarro, that he's dead. And still, we have Tal-Rho that's trying to be nice, and he's like, well, hey, like, Superman, tell your son I'm sorry. And Superman is telling Tal-Rho, it's like, well, how about on someday you go and tell him that yourself? Because maybe at some point there's some redeeming stuff with Tal-Rho. While they were also fighting, we had Tal-Rho that was saying that he was going to reveal some secrets about Superman. And I'm kind of always thinking in the back of my mind, like, who's going to reveal the secret that Clark is Superman? And, like, we can have a whole, like, Spider-Man No Way Home kind of scenario here. Because we've technically already had two other Superman anyways. Evil, but Superman. And so I want there to just be somehow somebody who gives up that Clark Kent is Superman. And I'm assuming that's going to happen somewhere down the road. And they're like, oh my god, the big reveal. How are they going to deal with this now in the next season? Because that'll be like a season finale reveal of something. That someone will come forward and say it. Because I'm waiting for it to happen. Something more interesting. So, we have, of course, Superman that is to change back into Clark Kent, and he now has to go home and talk to Jonathan and start to rib him and like tell him it's like, well, hey, like you know what, I thought you knew like the morality and things that we of course were to kind of drill into you, but I guess I was wrong, Jonathan. I guess I was wrong. So I'm going to go on and just have you go to every single person, principals and everybody, and just apologize to all of them. And then I'm going to have to try to reassert like what you should have already known, but I guess I was wrong. I guess you didn't know. And so I'm like, man, we're just gonna have more freaking episodes of like Clark and Lois just giving Jonathan the morality speeches. Those are gonna be boring episodes. But I'm kind of thinking probably since Jonathan is not going to probably be doing football anymore or any kind of sport, Clark probably isn't going to be an assistant coach either. So, what is Clark going to do now? Is he just going to sit at home and homeschool Jonathan until Jonathan goes to uh, another school? Like, because that's where I'm kind of hoping things are going to break down. Kind of forcibly have Jonathan again be another fish out of water story where he has to forcibly go to some other school that Clark is saying is another town away or something, that's going to be so like difficult for Jonathan to have to go to some other school. It's going to be difficult. I'd like to see that play out. So, with that said, I already know that this is 42 minutes, so I'm going to get the heck out of here. If there's probably anything that I forgot about, I apologize, but otherwise, I'm going to try to quickly get out of here because I realize how long I've been talking for. So, that said, bye, buddy. Bye, buddy. Realizing after the fact, I forgot one little thing. Anderson at the end of this episode was to find Allie. Because, of course, Superman was mentioning about Allie, and Anderson did not give a crap. And so, after Anderson had nowhere to go to, and it seems that Sam might have to go on and retake back his position once they go on and find somebody that can replace Anderson, because we kind of have Sam who's like, well, I recommended this guy, and so I might have to go on and I might have to go back, or I might have to go and try to do like something temporarily. So we have Anderson who makes his way back to Allie, and it's to mention like, well, hey, it seems that Superman talked about you, so like I want you to somehow figure out about this necklace, like what power it possesses and what you can do with it. And of course we have Allie who's like, I can do something with this. So like that's the one thing that I've forgotten about, and then I'm gonna wrap this all up together and to put this out. So because I know there's some people that are like, oh yeah, you forgot about the little slivers or whatever, and some people may not care at all, so that's okay. Because at the end of the day, goodbye everybody. Bye everybody.